Hello everyone and welcome to Inside Leather History, a Fireside Chat. I'm Doug O'Keefe, host and producer of the chats, which are a program of the Leather Archives and Museum. Today, I'm in Amsterdam, Netherlands on a very blustery, rainy day, and I am with Hans Verhoeven, is that correctly pronounced?
Almost. Hans Verhoeven.
Verhoeven.
Correct Dutch. Yeah.
Okay. Hans is very gracious to host me in his home today, which is above his shop, Gaze and Gadgets, here in Amsterdam. Tell us a little bit about the shop.
Well, Gaze and Gadgets, that's what we started with in 2004, gay lifestyle store. And some 10 years later, we added underground fetish in the cellar. It's been almost 20 years now. We're trying to cater to a broad group within our community. Not only fetish wear, but also sportswear, t-shirts, but also books, jewelry, you name it, we have it.
Okay, that's very good. And I know it's very popular. A lot of people talk about it.
Thank you.
Yes. My research tells me a little bit about you. You're a social liberal activist, a gay entrepreneur, and a mover. Let's address those. Would you explain for the audience what a social liberal activist is?
Social liberal is the definition here in the Netherlands of someone who is not extremely on the left, not extremely on the right, a little bit in the middle.
Okay.
I have no idea how to compare it with American politics. If there could be any comparison at the moment. My politics are defined by having a social eye for needed people, but also being realistic in the boundaries that we have as a society.
Please explain those a little bit.
Well, let's take migration and asylum seekers. I think we have to provide decent options for people to come to have asylum here in the Netherlands when they are in a situation in their home country where they cannot survive. But I'm also aware that our community and our society has limits of what we can handle and what we can do. That sort of explains the social eye, but also the realistic eye of the boundaries that we have to work with, and that you always have to. Man, are you quiet? The eye that we have to have for how things move within society.
Can you give me an example?
Well, a very clear one. One of the issues that is close to my heart is LGBT activists worldwide.
Yes.
And I'm involved in some campaigns in Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Balkan. There's people who say, anyone in a country where you cannot be yourself, where you cannot express your sexuality or your gender in freedom, must have the ability to come here and get asylum. That's not my opinion. I think that, suppose we say, you know what, we'll put all the money we have together and we'll bring each and every LGBT person in the world to the Netherlands and host them here so that they can be in freedom and in safety. In 15 years, there's a new generation with the same number of people, the same number of LGBT people being unsafe, being unfree. So bringing everybody here doesn't solve anything. We have to work on solving the situation in the countries where these problems are. And that is a realistic point of view as I see it. The social point of view is that for me, anyone who is in direct emergency, in direct danger, immediately has to go to the Netherlands and get asylum here. But I speak to people who say, I couldn't go, we don't have gay bars in the country where I come from. I couldn't go to a gay bar. And I was thinking, Is that a reason to leave your country, to come to another country, and also to leave behind a community that might need your help? Because if everybody comes here, no one is there to make any changes. An example of where I have eye for the social situation, but also eye for the problems that we have to solve and have to see them in a wider context.
How have you seen some resolution to some of the problems in doing this?
Very slowly. One of the projects that I'm involved with is a Zero Flags project. It's a project where we exhibit the flags of countries where homosexuality is in the criminal court, where being gay is often always only about gay men, is punished in 11 countries even with death penalty.
Yes.
In the last 3-4 years, when we started this project, we had 76 flags in the project, and currently we are at 69.
Okay.
So 7 countries have over the years changed their laws and take out homosexuality out of the criminal system, and that is progress. That means that a country is thinking about the position of LGBT people, is realizing that they deserve the same and a similar position in society as non-LGBT people. And there's more countries where these laws are not followed, but for me that's not enough. When still is in some book written that you as a gay person can be punished, can go to prison or even worse, then it has to be removed, because there can always come some sort of a politician who says, oh, we have this law, let's start enforcing it again.
You mentioned there were 7 countries that dropped their laws on that. For example, which countries?
Oh God.
Or 1 or 2 that you can think of?
Well, Singapore is dropping it. So
wow.
Which of course, you say wow was dropping it. I say wow that they still had it until like a year ago. It's quite a developed country, and it's crazy that it was still being punished.
I have visited Singapore many times. They're very, very conservative as a society. I guess I can see why it sat there as long as it did.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What was the catalyst to change that for Singapore?
Often it's local activists. Another reason why people should stay in the country and fight. Local activists who went to high courts and fought against the rules in the law books, saying that they were unconstitutional. Currently, in a lot of Caribbean countries, similar court cases are being held, and most of them are successful.
Wow, great.
Which means that these laws are actually being put out of function, but they're still not taken away. So these flags are still in our project. As long as it is in the books and not taken out by Parliament, the flags stay in the project.
Very wonderful, wonderful. What countries do you feel are the most egregious, the worst countries for this?
Unfortunately, it's a lot of countries in the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. Currently, Indonesia has been doing a lot of changes for the worse, bringing in force again Sharia law with public punishments, and not only making the laws but really enforcing them very, very hard. I'm still very, very confused about the fact that we were playing the World Soccer Games in Qatar, where this is one of the countries where homosexuality is still being punished. And that we sort of allowed them to make rules where they expected the people visiting the soccer games to I don't know, I don't recall the exact words, but do not display being gay. That was actually, in my own words, what they said. And I didn't hear FIFA, I didn't hear any politician making a row about it. And I thought that was very, very strange.
Do you mean local politicians or
No,
international?
international.
Okay.
Not even our politicians here. We sent one of our ministers and to be present, Minister of Sports. So there was a lot of activism here saying, we should not go. Let sports be sports, so send the football team, and for the rest, forget about it. And then the government said, well, you know what, we'll make sure that she gives a very clear signal. So she was wearing one of the small buttons here, where partly also a scarf was over. That was her very clear signal of supporting the LGBT community.
Was it a gay pride button?
It was so small, I never saw it.
I see.
I tried to see it on the pictures, but even enhancing the pictures to a very large state, I couldn't see what kind of but I guess it was a rainbow flag.
Fascinating. As a Dutch activist, what power do you feel you have to bring to these people if you were to visit Indonesia, for example?
The power of communication, the power of network, the power of knowledge, and most important, the power of support. Being there is seen as a very, very strong signal of support. They make it clear that they really like it, that you're present. Well, for instance, I was in Tbilisi 3 years ago, where the big rows were, where we were hunted through the streets by thousands of Contra protesters with no police protection at all. And the fact that I was able to communicate to media networks here in the West, in England, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in France, in Germany, made it an event that was being everywhere on the media networks, which led to a lot of statements from governments, from European Parliament, telling Tbilisi or Georgia to step up and protect us, and to make sure that there would be changes in their society, because Georgia is one of these countries. Georgia is not in the 71 flags, or at this moment 69. They have perfect laws, but the enforcement of the laws, that is the problem. And a society that is based upon an orthodox religion and right-wing populist politicians. And that is a very ignitable mixture, where if you organize something like a pride, thousands of people show up to show their protest. Because when you go to church the Sunday before the Pride March, they're being told, go and protest. Make sure God knows that we don't like that. Going to countries like Georgia, but there was always also in Kiev, in Ukraine, and Serbia, Kosovo, many countries, mainly Eastern Europe.
Yes.
There is still a lot to fight. There's still a lot to do.
What was your greatest concern as a person when you were there, for your safety?
My personal safety.
Yes.
My first and foremost intention is to come home safely, which is not always easy. And there's a lot of things that I do to make sure that people know where I am, that the Foreign State Department knows where I am, that the embassy knows that I'm there, that I'm in contact with the embassy, that I have people here following me, regular contact, etc. And that is not without reason. I know for a fact that in Serbia my room was searched, hotel room. In Kiev, if we had a meeting, all the mobile phones went into the microwave because that is so concealed that no transmission. They can bug it, but they can't hear it.
Oh yes.
This is the kind of opposition that local activists face, and government is a very powerful enemy, and especially if you have little funds, if you are working mainly on volunteership, then it's really a struggle. And there I think it's important that we as Western society show our support, and more than just me going there. There has to be done a lot more.
Have you been denied access
No.
to certain places?
No, not yet.
How have you achieved access to some of these very volatile places?
Most of the countries, there's no visum required. So that never has been a problem.
Okay,
No.
very good, very good. Before we take a step, would you like to introduce who's joining?
Yes, well, this is King. King is one of the cats that we have here. The other one is Bugsy,
Who was
there,
over here,
just
yes.
walking by. And then downstairs in the shop we have Cheered.
Okay,
And
such a happy cat.
yes, he's a happy camper when he's being touched. Yeah.
I want to take a couple different steps, and then we may double back to cover some other material. Gay entrepreneur. What does that mean to you? What is that?
Gay entrepreneurship, I think, is for me a social thing. Is reinvesting in the community. Is being a safe space for the community. Having, at the end of the month we have to pay the bills. So we are a commercial enterprise, but there's many ways how you can be commercial, and we try to do it in a way where the profit that we make also profits others. And one of them is that all these activities that I do are being sponsored, paid for by the company. But also we invest in local organizations, we help with all sorts of activities. And I think that is important for gay entrepreneurship. For me, it's important for gay entrepreneurship. It doesn't necessarily have to be for everybody. Yeah, that's how I see it.
What sorts of things do you sponsor?
There can be numerous things, of course. Each and every Mr. or Mrs. election. We don't sponsor parties. That's the one thing we don't sponsor, because why should a commercial enterprise sponsor a commercial enterprise?
Mm-hmm.
When we sponsor, it's always non-profit.
I see.
Usually very small activities. But what we also do is we sell a lot of products that is being produced by local LGBT people, from books that people publish on their own to jewelry and other stuff.
Oh.
And that is, I think, the best way of helping others to start up in being an entrepreneur.
Very good. How are you a mover?
By making something from nothing. I'm known to be able to, start with a white piece of paper, and then like a few weeks later you have a huge project and everything is going on. There's a lot of things happening. But also by, I think, trying to move people to another vision, to my vision of the world and of the society.
What is your vision?
My vision of the society, as it should be, is that we make sure that we have the vision on, the eyes on those who need some extra support in order to be able to live the life that they want to live. Some of us are fortunate in being able to develop their life and to live their life in a way that is successful, and some just need a little hand, and that is throughout society. That is within our community, but it has to do with housing, it has to do with social income, it has to do with many things. And I think it's important that we keep an eye on these people that need a hand, that need a little assistance. And that is something that I see diminishing over the last couple of years.
Why do you think so? Or how do you see this?
Well, looking to the Netherlands, here in Amsterdam, I'm involved in some homeless activities. The number of homeless people is growing in Amsterdam, around 35,000, in the Netherlands, 35,000 now. The budgets are going down. Now, I just can't understand how a politician, from whatever political idea he or she might be, how can you justify spending less money when the problem is growing? That is something tell me why. And nobody has an answer. If you ask that simple question, nobody has an answer. It's always answers that have to do with something else than homelessness. And that is, and that's just one example. But you see it in housing, social housing. Some 25 years ago, the social housing companies were allowed to sell off a large part of their properties. So the number of social houses went down, and they had to reinvest part of that money into social housing again. But social housing has different levels of rent. And what you saw happening was that the houses with the lowest rents were sold off for often very high prices, and they rebuilt houses in the highest price segment of social housing. So the number of houses available on the very low, like 300, 400 euros a month, they're almost not there anymore. And these are situations where, again, if you ask, but why? Why do you allow that? Yeah, there's always an answer, but it never has to do with making sure that there's affordable housing for everybody.
What are you doing regarding this homeless issue?
I work together with Salvation Army. I'm volunteer on the soup bus, bringing food to homeless people, organizing activities. That's what I do.
I'd like to take a step back. I'd like to find out what brought you to where you are today.
Oh.
So this is a big part of the interviews that I do. Tell me a little bit about your growing up, your family, where you're from, these things.
Born and raised in Amsterdam. My father, working for KLM, lived as a younger guy a couple of years abroad.
Where?
Indonesia,
Oh.
For instance, Venezuela, Kenya. So in a young age, I saw poverty. I remember on one of the first trips that was to Indonesia, you had there was a very long street, Jalan Anak-anak, the street of children. and it was like 6 lanes on each side, and it has big bridges over it to come from one side to another. And on these bridges, you had people begging for money, people trying to sell stuff, etc. And there was this little kid, probably my age, and he was shining shoes. And out of the goodness of my heart, I wanted to help this guy, and so I asked my father, "Can I have him shine my shoes?" And my father said no. He said, "You're giving him the money that I got some, you call it allowance or?"
Yes.
I don't recall how much it was, but he said, "You're giving the guy the money that you get from us every week. And when we come home in the hotel, you shine your own shoes and mine." Well, that's the way how I was brought up. My parents were in the 60s, he's leaving us, were very left-wing communists.
Fascinating.
Yes. I think I got some of that, of the political views.
Left-wing communists. How did that affect their lives in the Netherlands? Which, of course, is different from what I would know in North America.
Yeah, I do know when my father started working for KLM in the 60s, part of the interview cycle was that a home visit, they would come home. And my parents made sure that all the books that were a bit too leftish were taken out of the cupboard. Yeah.
Fascinating. How did they define that ideology? What did they do to support it?
Well, in my time when I was with my parents, because my parents were a bit older when I was born, not so much anymore, but in the previous years, far before I was born, in the 50s, they were active. They did rallies with political parties, and we had a yearly event, the Festival of the Truth, organized by the Communist Party of the Netherlands.
Fascinating.
And I even went there a couple of times, and they went there often.
Were they subject to some of the, I guess you'd call it discrimination that was so prevalent among communists in North America? Was it something similar?
No, that was
Good.
not that big of an issue here. Yes, I think some people were being watched, but was it McCarthy?
McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yes. Joseph McCarthy.
Not even close to that.
Good.
No, absolutely nothing like that. No.
Fascinating. Tell me about coming out.
That was easy. My first boyfriend, his name was Erik, and he lived in Amsterdam and studied in Utrecht. I was 17, he was 18. And Erik also lived in Utrecht, but every weekend came back to Amsterdam to his parents, to do the laundry, get some extra money. And Sundays he would be with us, with me and with my parents. And he and I would go on a walk in the park and, have a little intimate contact. No other place to go. And then he would have dinner with us, would go home, and I would do the dishes with my father. And one night my father said to me, he said, if you feel something for that guy, just give in to it. I almost dropped the plate and it was cleaning. So my parents made my coming out very easy. Very easy.
Well, I can see why, if they were very left-wing, that would work out well.
Yes.
Tell us about the gay scene you experienced in Amsterdam when you were young.
Different from now. Mm-hmm. Different from now, absolutely. A lot has changed. Some for the good, some not. There has been a lot of things happening in the past, 20 years that made a lot of changes.
Such as?
Well, such as, for a long time, Amsterdam, San Francisco, New York were the gay places to go to.
Yes.
And that made that we had a thriving LGBT community, or back then it was a gay community. It was mainly men and a couple of women's places, and that was that. It was fortunate that over time other cities started to be a gay destination as well. And it was not only these three cities where you could go to have a good time as a tourist, but you could go to Barcelona, to Berlin, to Sitges, Las Palmas, you name it. In fact, each and every tourist destination also became an LGBT-friendly location.
Yes.
What happened was that these tourists that always went to either Amsterdam, San Francisco, or New York now had a wide variety of cities to choose from.
Yeah.
And were no longer confined to these three cities, which meant that the number of gay tourists to Amsterdam dropped dramatically. And of course, our infrastructure was based upon these thousands of tourists coming every year to Amsterdam. So around in the 90s, early started, I think, somewhere 95, 96. You saw a lot of places going bankrupt.
Yes.
Because of, as I said, the amount of bars was just far too much for just the city of Amsterdam with a couple of tourists. So that was the first big change in our commercial society. In the 80s, we had a lot of activism regarding HIV and AIDS, which actually sort of changed from fighting the government to fighting the ignorance in society.
Yes.
For which we now find our government on our side, fighting with us against the ignorance that we still see within society. And that's also a big change. That makes, because fighting the government was often a fight for yourself.
Yes.
Where fighting ignorance is a fight for the community. And as soon as the object of your fight is more personal, you'll see that more people are involved.
Yes.
So the number of people being involved in HIV and AIDS activities has diminished as well. But you can't see it loose from general changes in society. I think over the last 20 years, we've become less social, less being interested in someone else. I think that it's important that you always realize what effect your acting has on others. And that's something that some people forget. And it's all about, I want this and it's my right to, etc.
I agree.
Without realizing what your action is doing on the other side. And unfortunately, we see that also in our community. What was shocking, a few years ago, we have a populist right-wing party here, or two actually, Forum voor Democratie and Partij voor de Vrijheid. And there's a large number of LGBT people voting for them. And the reason? These parties have nothing with homosexuality, with gender diversity, etc. Nothing. Except using our community as an example of the bad things of Islam. So they say, you see another gay man or lesbian woman beaten by a Moroccan boy or a Moroccan man. That's how they support our community, only because it helps them in their storytelling about the dangers of Islam. And still these two parties have a large number of votes from our community.
Why do you feel that people are attracted to voting for that?
Because they think, oh well, they are against Islam. We are being attacked by Islam, so I have to vote for them.
Oh, okay. I follow.
Very short-sighted.
Yes.
Very short-sighted.
Yes. Tell us about your coming out into the kink scene. How did that evolve for you?
Well, it started. My first steps was my first boyfriend. I was 18 or 19 back then, suggesting to use a tie to make some knots and bound the hands together. That was the first step. Very domestic, very domestic.
But did you enjoy it?
Yes. yes,
There.
yes. It was fun. It was fun. And from that it progressed. Going to events. There was a very big event in Hamburg every year, and we often went there. And the nice thing about fetish and about kink, and it has so many aspects of sexuality. Just today, one of the new groups within our fetish community is the pub scene.
Yes.
And
that's everywhere.
That's everywhere at the moment. And me, being 58, had just a few days ago my first experience being a handler for a puppy.
Ah.
And I can tell you, it was very, very nice. It was fun. It was, it's a mixture of an equalness that you see within SM relations, but the tenderness of a loving relationship. And I think that's also why pub scene is so attracted by younger guys, because it does have this unbalance, but not immediately this aggressiveness that you sometimes witness within SM relations. But in the meantime, you also see that they sort of grow. We have a lot of these kids in our shop, and they slowly grow towards other places within our community. But it is really and truly the answer on a question that we've been asking ourselves for many years: how do we involve youngsters within our community?
Yes.
Well, this is the answer. This is absolutely the answer.
Explain then a little more. How is that the answer?
Well, because it's more easy for them to make the step of entering the pub scene, because it's not so aggressive, it's not so strict in rules and orders, etc. Yeah, I think that is most important. It does give them this idea of, being either handler or a pub, having this an equalness in a relationship, but in the same time, being petted and, oh, you're a nice guy, and then slap on your bum because you didn't do something right or something. It's less frightening. I think it's less frightening.
For them.
For
yes.
them, yeah.
Yes. You're well known in the Dutch scene. How do the other people in the scene and in the community respond to you?
Different. I'm known for voicing my opinion, and I'm known for my stubbornness if I want to achieve something, which makes that I change things, that I can address issues, but it also makes that I make enemies. People don't like me. And then there's others who who support the work that I'm doing on multiple levels within our community. It's impossible to only have friends. and I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make changes. If I can do that with friends, great. But if I have to be your enemy in order to make the change, then I'll be your enemy. I don't care.
How do you respond to the haters, the people who dislike you?
Not. It's no. You know, I don't really give a shit. I do my thing, and if you don't like me, fine. There's others who do like me, and if you don't like me, that's your problem, not mine. I really can't be bothered, not a second.
I agree. I think any of us who have our own program and our own attitude in the community face something similar.
Yeah.
At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. When you voice your opinion so loudly as I do, it's impossible that everybody agrees with what I'm saying. And it shouldn't. I mean, in order to be able to have discussions and to see if we can convince others from our point of view, you need to have this conflict of disagreement. One of the problems, I think, is that we sometimes make it too personal. We can disagree on a lot of things, but we can still be nice and friendly to each other and have a drink or whatever. But sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to do anything with you, just because, I don't know, I said that I'm not in favor of making the Netherlands a safe haven for any LGBT person in the world. No, that's not my opinion. And then for some people, you're immediately outcast.
Yes.
That's
yes.
And I don't mind. Let me be outcast.
A little leather birdie instructed me to ask you about these particular words and to get your reaction for these words.
Oh boy.
Equality, visibility, inclusion, and justice. What do those mean to you?
They're the basics of all the work that I do. If one thing gets me going, it's injustice. As soon as I see injustice, that's when I jump. And injustice often comes from inequality. Inequality, thank you.
Yes.
And inequality can come from different backgrounds. It can come from different starts in your life. It can come from different position within society. It can has many reasons, but everything, it always is the same. And there again, it comes back to, helping those who need a hand. Based upon this inequality, you need this hand to overcome it. People who are in an unequal position need an extra hand to overcome this. They often are just not able to do it because they are in this unequal position. Yeah, what were the other two? Remind me.
There were, let me come back here, visibility.
Oh yeah, visibility.
Inclusion.
Yeah, well, but if you're not visible, you don't exist.
Yeah.
So many of the activities that I've been organizing have always been activities that are out in the open. You won't find me somewhere in a back room of a bar or whatever. No, I'm out in the streets and showing there what opinion or what activity or thing has to be done, using public space to make people aware that we exist. That's what we need. That's why we need visibility. And that's why I think it's so important that we have pride, that we go out. I'm getting sick and tired of these discussions. Oh, do we still need a pride? Yes, we do still need a pride. Every 15 years, there's a new generation that we need to tell, that we need to explain, that we need to justify our existence with. And pride is the opportunity to do that.
How so?
Well, I was involved in the first Pride here in Amsterdam in 1994, Euro Pride. And by claiming the streets, by being out there, by being ourselves, as we do that, we show the world who we are and that we are. That's why we need that pride for. That's the opportunity that we grab to show the world that we're here and we're here to stay.
Have there been causes or have there been issues that you've regretted supporting?
Oh. I can't remember. I don't think so. No.
That's great to hear.
Regret is something that is also something that how can you regret something that you willingly made a decision to? You know, it is with the information that you had at that moment, you made a decision, and that's what we do. And if then later other information comes, yeah, you might have had a different decision if you had that information at the time you took it. But since you didn't have it,
yeah,
you can also not regret that you took the wrong decision or a different decision that you would have had made if you'd had the information.
How do you want to be remembered by your community?
Oh. Well, you know, what I hope is that if I'm able with the things that I've been doing in my life to inspire one person to try to do the same, then I'm happy.
Wonderful. Anything you wish you had done differently?
Oh, many things.
For example?
Many things, yes. Well, in some situations, it might have been more wise to have a different approach towards politicians or other, how you call them, positions, people. But that's something that you learn over time and that I've come much better in over the last couple of years. But in the beginning, yes, I know. And for instance, you know, a lot of things that I've been doing were first timers. We never had a Euro Pride or a Pride in Amsterdam as big as we organized it in 1994. Everything was new. Nobody knew what. We didn't even have a license because the city was not prepared to have a license ready for an event this big. 10 days, some 300 activities on 50 locations. So there was still sorting out how to get a license for this arranged and organized, etc. And by the time we were starting, they were still thinking how to do it. So there are things that you learn from those situations that you can bring to others and try to help them prevent making similar mistakes or have a better judgment or a different approach. I think it's not so much wrong, but it's that there hasn't been an example. I've been one of the projects I do for Pride Amsterdam is a couple of years back we were in contact with we started getting in contact with organizations that were not, we say that, automatically connected to Pride. The idea was, you know, reach out to these organizations, see if we can get them within the Pride organization, not for 2 weeks partying, but to have our vision of life within their organization the whole year. And one of the organizations I worked with was Salvation Army. In 2019, we organized a Christmas concert in the Westerkerk with artists and bands from Salvation Army, with artists from our community playing together. It was to raise money for an LGBT shelter for homeless youngsters, because we see that where the age of coming out has come down to
Yes.
like 11, 12, sometimes even younger.
Yeah.
Also, the family problems occur on a younger age. And where it is known that a lot of homeless people come from a situation where they were kicked out of their family and became homeless, we now see, and estimations are that about 600 children in the age 12 to 18 are kicked out every year in the Netherlands, still in the Netherlands.
Terrible.
So we started on that project together with Salvation Army. The essence of such a project is that you work together with an organization that is, and here in the Netherlands it's less evangelic as in America, but still it is a Christian organization with some roots that are not all too LGBT friendly, if I say it.
You said it.
By working together with them, by finding the common grounds on this project, eventually a couple of things happened within Salvation Army. They started, and it's directly because of this project that we started from Pride. They now have an international LGBT organization, Salvos for a More Inclusive Church, with more than 600 members. The Netherlands, the Salvation Army of the Netherlands, had a declaration last June about inclusiveness and sexuality, where in the past homosexuality was no problem, where it was the people they were caring for. Now they've made a big statement saying, but it's no issue at all within our church, within our organization, and within our clients. And I think that is the progress that you see when you try to come together and find the common grounds. And then there's always a couple of things where you disagree, but as soon as you know to work together on these common grounds, you'll find ways of working around these disagree points and bring them at the end together.
Somewhere out there's going to be a young activist who's going to see this video. What advice can you offer that person?
Follow your own ideas. And if you think it's good, it's good.
What's the biggest misconception about you? Your expression said it all.
Can you name one?
That's up to you to tell me.
I have no idea, actually. I don't know what to put. Actually, I'm so not interested in what other people think of me that I have no idea about their misconceptions.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah, I really don't bother what other people think of me. I do what I do, and if you don't like it, no problem.
Well, Hans, I would like to thank you for a wonderful interview for Inside Leather History, a fireside chat, and thank you for having me in your home.
More than welcome. Thank you for watching.